Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of the Not What I'm Referring To podcast. And we got a good one for you today. We got our first ever guest, and I couldn't have asked for a better one. There's no one else that fits better. His name is Spike Cohen, former Libertarian vice presidential candidate, entrepreneur, founder and president of You Are the Power. We're going to get into all of that. But guys, first, for those of you that don't know Spike, I want to show you this video, and then we're going to get right into it.
Thank you. My name is Spike Cohen. I don't recall the First Amendment coming with a 3-minute time limit, but that's okay. I shouldn't even need that long. I'm here to speak on behalf of Erica Brown and Be Kind, Be Great, and all of the other residents of your community who are out helping people as they're being told by the city government that there's a problem with that. We've heard, Howard, you were one of them, we've heard some of you on the news saying that they're creating a hazard and that they're making a mess. And yet, when Be Kind, Be Great goes out and feeds people, they leave the place cleaner than they found it. You called them a nuisance. I don't think a person helping another person and giving them food is a nuisance. I think when someone shows up and lies about them and threatens them with fines or jail time, I think that's a nuisance. Now, what wasn't mentioned in your declaration about the plan that you're offering, what you didn't mention is it comes with fees. So you're now telling people who out of the goodness of their own heart are trying to help members of your community in need that before they can spend a single penny to give a single morsel to someone who needs it, they got to pay you off first. Now, I don't think the single one of you outside of your capacity as a government official, I don't think a single one of you, if you were on the other side of this dais, would dare to go out there to someone who's feeding someone else and say, this is a nice little charity you got here. Be a real shame if something were to happen to it. Maybe if you do it the way I tell you to and you give me a little piece of it, I'll let you keep doing it. And maybe if not, we'll have some trouble. I don't think a single one of you would do that. I don't think any of you are sociopaths. I don't think any of you are protection racketeers or mobsters. I think what happens is you get on that side of the table and you tell yourself that you're just doing your jobs. Well, if that were actually true, then your jobs are objectively evil. You should quit them and find something better to do. I don't think that's your job. I think you can choose to do your job differently and treat them with the same level of respect that you treat them with on this side of the table. And so what I'm here proposing, and this might sound crazy, is for you to act on that side of the dais as you would on this side of the dais and let people help people who are in need. Whichever you choose, I'm going to make sure, as I do in cities across the country, that millions of people know what you chose. I hope that the thousands upon thousands of those who contact you about it will be congratulating you on choosing to be a hero and not giving their thoughts on you, instead being a nuisance. See you soon.
And there you have it. Mr. Cohen, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Like I said, I really mean this. I couldn't have asked for a better first guest for the Not What I'm Referring To podcast because, I had the chance to speak with you a year ago on a small little unknown podcast on Rumble, and I got to say, the stars aligned, and here we are a year later. There's been a lot going on in the world. We're going to get into all of that, but why don't we go ahead and dissect? What was I just watching? Because it looked to me like you were giving a town council, crap for what? For trying to stop people from feeding homeless people for some reason?
Yes. So backing up a little bit, my organization, You Are the Power, this is what we do. We find examples of people who are disrespected and treated unjustly by their local governments. We help them we organize them in their communities to get the justice and the respect that they deserve. And we encourage people to join us in fighting for justice and respect for people in even more places. And this is one of those examples. So this was a lady who reached out to us named Erica Brown, who runs an organization called Be Kind, Be Great. There's a few others that do the same thing in Columbia, South Carolina as well. And what she does is every Friday, she goes out to Columbia to specific areas where some homeless people are living. One place is just outside of a park. One is under a bridge. There's a few different spots where they are. And she brings them food and she tries to see if they need any other help, if they need any supplies, any kind of toiletries, things like that. And there's been no problem until the city government, and we didn't know this at the time, but we found out shortly afterwards. The city government had signed a multi-million-dollar deal with an NGO charity that was based in the center of the city. They had spent millions of dollars on this deal, and then they said suddenly everyone had to go there to be fed. Now, Colombia is a very geographically large area that includes, swamps and rivers and lakes. And some of the folks that live in Colombia that are homeless are several miles away. They'd have to walk through multiple residential communities. They'd have to cross bridges. They'd have to do all this nonsense to get there. And so what they started doing was going out to where they were being fed and said, no, you can't do this here. This is very unsafe. You need to do a caravan of homeless people every day to possibly get fed down at Hope Plaza. So anyway, we found out about it. We lit them up about it. And long story short, they are now backing off and not threatening people who are feeding people anymore.
Well, I mean, Spike, how dare they? How dare they try and help those people? I can't believe that. Like they're they're spending resources where you got people going out of their way trying to actually, deal with a community problem. And God forbid, they're dealing with it. If by the sounds of it, they're getting people fed, right? They're going to where the people are, they're feeding them. What is the problem? Like, it's literally makes my head want to explode because we're just creating new problems. What, for the sake of bureaucracy? For the sake of some subsidy food that gets someone in HR at town hall a fucking bonus? Like, I just don't get it. What's your take on that? Like,
my take is that this is what government does. Government either creates a crisis or causes a crisis to worsen or to continue so that they can present themselves as the solution to it. And of course, that real solution is more of your money, more of the power handed over to them, your rights being infringed upon if it's a safety thing or whatever. And it all comes down to they want more power. And the only way they can get you to give them money and power is to allow for there to be crises. And then they basically make it where they're the only ones who are allowed to solve it. Now, you had people who are out of their own money and money that's being voluntarily given to them. They're solving this problem, or they're at least ameliorating the harm that's being caused by this problem. And rather than say, hey, that's great that you're doing that, they step in and go, no, we have a multi-million-dollar plan that we have here. Yeah. We want to be the ones being congratulated for it. So we'll just arrest anyone who's doing it themselves.
It is symptomatic of just whatever you want to call it, big brother, police state, nanny state, whatever you want to call it. They are breathing down our necks right now, my friend. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, like, there's countless things, but I mean, you talk a lot about police brutality, police stepping over their bounds, I saw a video on your feed there of a criminal was sitting next to a tree and they were trying to fine him for something. I was like, what is happening down there, bro? It's like, I don't know what to say. But I mean, I think people need to understand this. The days when police, were there to protect you and your community, that's not really what it is now, right? Now it is, they're there to protect state assets, my friends. That's it. They want to protect the assets. They want to make sure you don't go looting the Gucci store in downtown California, but they do not give a shit. They will let you drown. In fact, that actually happened last year in the States. 2 police officers watched a man drown, cracking jokes about it because they're not obligated to go in. They're not obligated, Spike.
And in some cases, they're not even protecting the Gucci store anymore, right? In many cases, the main job of law enforcement is to collect revenue, whether it's through fining people, whether it's through civil forfeiture, where they just straight up steal property and money from people without even arresting them for anything. That is increasingly becoming the main purpose of law enforcement, is to act as a revenue generating mechanism for local governments, municipal governments, county governments, state governments, and honestly the federal government, because the civil forfeiture program is actually a federally run program. And if any other organization did what they did, taking money from people, running it through a bank account that then goes to another bank account, who then filters it back. We'd call it fencing and money laundering.
Money laundering, yes.
And that's what it is. The only difference between civil forfeiture and money laundering and fencing and a nationwide robbery organization is that what they're doing is legal. That's literally the only difference.
It's legal, and they get guns to do it with. They don't even have to hide them or nothing. They have the guns too. Have you ever had like any scary moments with police doing this "You Are the Power" stuff? And what's some of the other things you've done? Because by the way, Spike, I have a lot of people, a lot of followers that ask John, what can we do? What can we do right now? There's a lot of people feeling scared, desperate, hopeless. You don't have to be hopeless, guys. These are some little things you can do. It starts in the community. That's the message. I'm trying to I don't have the answers either, Spike, but I do think it starts in communities. Start small, work on your neighbor, get to know your neighbors, help your neighbors, all that stuff. So anyone that's asked me that question should go over to You Are the Power and check it out. But Spike, what's some of the other stuff you guys are doing? And then second question, have you ever gotten hassled by the popo while doing it?
Yeah. So I'll start with that question first. It depends on your definition of hassle. I haven't been arrested yet. We basically tried to get arrested, but we haven't gotten arrested yet. But here's the thing. When they'll arrest someone, like a person or 5 people or something like that. When dozens or hundreds of people show up and there's camera and the media is there, suddenly they're a lot more hesitant to react as they normally would because there's pressure on them. But so to answer your question about what people can do, start in your backyard. And that's actually a big part of why I started You Are the Power is I would see, especially in the liberty movement, I'd see people getting increasingly bitter and black-pilled because they look at these horrific things, wars and inflation and all these like national and international issues, the COVID lockdowns and the COVID regimes, and they would say, there's nothing we can do about this. They're too powerful. They have too much money. They have too much control. Too many people think that they're doing the right thing. We're screwed. We can't do anything. You can start in your backyard. And even though it doesn't fix the things on a global or national scale, it fixes it for you. It fixes it for your community, and it acts as a proof of concept for people to join you. You're going to be that first adopter who says, look, we can fix this. And as more and more people join you, there's a snowball effect. And before you know it, you've created serious change. You've created a movement in your backyard. If you want the cheat codes for how to do it, join You Are the Power. Go to youarethepower.net. We do this all day long. This is literally what we do 24 hours a day in the US and now starting in Australia soon. But this is what we do. Yeah, no, we're becoming international. Maybe we need to start one in Canada. But, the bottom line is whether you join us in doing it or whether you're doing it yourself, the bottom line is you can do so much more in your backyard, and it more acutely affects you and your loved ones what you do in your backyard than what you try to do at the national level.
It's the facts, right? And I mean, as bad as things are, communities are still, I don't know if it's the artist in me, Spike, but I still have that little bit of optimism that, you know what, when you break it down, there's good people in the community. And when you get them together, they can do good things, man. It's not done. It's not dead yet, people. I promise it's not dead yet. We are kind of close, though.
No, I'll tell you, listen, when I called it You Are the Power, and I one of the messages there is, I think, again, we think, there's this huge, global domination organization, and the majority of people are bought into it, and they're idiots and useful, rubes, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it's like, no, bring it down to the community level. And you find these kinds of causes. We've yet to have anyone outside of the mayor and city council members actually try to tell us with a straight face that this is a good thing that the city council was doing, right? Yeah. Everyone was on our side. At most, they'd go, I don't want to really get involved. But everyone was on our side. It was a no-brainer. The reality is most people, they don't necessarily agree with what's going on. They just don't know what to do. And they hear, from corporate media and from the government that this is the right way forward. So they shrug their shoulders and keep their heads low and say, I'm just going to focus on what I can focus on. We can fix things by showing people there's a better way.
You know, now you say that, and you're absolutely right. You are bombarded. I wonder if they fucking did it on purpose. I wouldn't put it past them. You are bombarded with so much info, 24-hour news cycle, right? People just turn off, and they have happier lives for it. But at the same time, that's how they get away with the sneaky shit.
Yes.
That's how, that's how things like, I don't know, JP Morgan settling a $400 million lawsuit with Epstein victims goes under the rug. Like, that's how that sort of stuff happens, because they're tuned out. And I don't blame them. I never blame the people, Spike. It's the system has failed. And that's the way I see it. But we're living in a new world. But this is a perfect segue. The internet has provided, social media was providing a new avenue for people to get information. How's that going? How's that been going now? I got to tell you, Spike, they just they gave a strike to my TikTok account, and I was scrolling through your Instagram, and I saw that they restricted you as well.
Yes. Yeah. I'm getting throttled pretty hard on all the Meta products right now on Instagram, on Facebook, and I guess everyone's throttled on Threads. No one's really using Threads anymore. But on Instagram, I put up a post. And we'll get into what that post was in a moment, because that's a perfect segue for the next thing, I'm sure. But bottom line is, it was entirely factual. It was backed up with quotes and documentation. No one disputes it. So it's only controversial, I guess, in that some people aren't ready to hear it or don't want to hear it. But it's literally like no one disputes the facts that I stated. And it was taken down for they said it violated their community guidelines. But the ones it cited was in praising or celebrating dangerous groups and organizations. I literally stated, and I guess I'll just go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, go ahead. We can dive into it.
I gave the history of how the Israeli government promoted Hamas as a counterweight to Fatah and the PLO. They thought that if they could have a religious organization that was fighting against the secular PLO or the secular Fatah that was running the PLO under Yasser Arafat, that they could have them fight each other and they'd be able to, carve out, a better agreement for them. And so they completely, for the better part of 20 years, they completely ignored that this was a violent terrorist organization that was advocating for every Jew in Israel to be removed and for, global jihad, or not global jihad, but regional jihad. And they gave them, while they were banning people from being a part of the PLO or Fatah, because this was back when there was no Palestinian Authority. The Israeli government ran the Palestinian territories. Right. They were banning activism in any other political party and giving Israeli taxpayer dollars to these charities that made up what eventually in 1987 became Hamas. And even after Hamas started declaring jihad and started actually engaging in active terrorism, it wasn't another 3 or 4 years until they stopped funding them. So I was just bringing that to light. Yes, it was all about money. It was money and power, and the hubris that only comes from neoconservative foreign policy. The idea that, we can make these radicals our friends and give them, the U.S. did it with the Mujahideen, which later became the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The U.S. did it again in Iraq with what later became ISIS. They're still doing it in Syria with the so-called moderate militias that are there right now. They do it over and over and over again. So anyway, I was talking about this. This was, I think, less than 24 hours after the first attack, or maybe just over 20, about a day afterwards. And I said, this was horrific, what just happened. And it's important that you know the history of why we're even here in the first place. Yes. And Instagram looked at that and said, no, it's not important for people to know why we're here.
Well, how dare you, as a Jewish American, Spike, how dare you comment on Israel? How dare you?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's what blew my mind, is that it's like they took it down and kind of implying that it's like implying that it's anti-Israel. And I'm like, this man is a Jewish American people. But that's the proof that you have fucking AI running a lot of this stuff. I think there are maybe certain keywords, and the AI robot just plucks that on out. There's no context. They're using AI to retroactively adjust people's people's sentences in China. That's been happening.
That's definitely going to be helpful. Yeah.
That's great. That's not.
There's no way that'll end poorly.
Oh God!
Not only did they remove that post or take it down. Now I'm on. I forget what the status is called, but only my followers can see my content. So I let everyone know that too. I'm like, hey, look, now only you can see it. Now what's funny is my engagement on Instagram is up. So it blew up in the, you want to talk about blowback, that my followers are now following me even harder to offset the fact that it's not, and they're encouraging people to follow me so that they can continue seeing my content. So my engagement's actually up since all of this, and I'm still appealing it. But the point is, the bottom line is that I do think it's AI. I don't think someone was sitting there and going, I don't want people to hear the truth. They got robots doing this stuff.
Yeah, man.
And the robots saw Hamas, jihad, death, murder,
all the words,
whatever. And it's just, and it's like, that has to go.
How dare you use words in the English language to describe something? You're not allowed to do that.
I am against these things. Oh, you said these things. You got to go.
I mean, it's classic. I mean, it sucks. It's like the fact that they've done it now, 3 times? Taliban, ISIS, Hamas. It's like, it's just a tried and true method. What did George Bush say? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, won't fool me again. Whatever the hell that crazy bastard said.
Never misunderestimate me.
Are we? So either there is a fundamental, missing section of there's a learning disability here, or they're doing it on purpose repeatedly. Which one? I don't know. Which one's even worse? They're both terrible. They're both.
So I use both Occam's and Hanlon's razor. I guess we'll call it Cohen's razor. That whenever government is involved, assumes some level of both maliciousness and ineptitude. And I think that here's the thing. If U.S. foreign and I'll say Western foreign policy in general of creating the next terror group that you're going to be fighting against, creating the next for example, neo-Nazi militia that you're going to be fighting against in the future. If you're looking at it from the standpoint of how would we protect Americans and our allies? It makes zero sense whatsoever. But if you for a moment looked at it a little more cynically and said, how would this generate the most amount of revenue for the military industrial complex and the intelligence complex, while simultaneously creating a crisis environment that gets Americans to more willfully and eagerly give up their money and their rights and their civil liberties in exchange for your protection. Now suddenly it makes perfect sense to continuously create your next enemy to fight your old enemy, and oops, now you have a new enemy to fight. Now it makes perfect sense. But under what we're told our military and our intelligence services and everything else are for, under the filter of what they say they're for, it makes no sense whatsoever. Under that more cynical take on it, it makes perfect sense.
George Orwell is probably pretty bummed out that instead of, taking 1984 and using it as a warning, every government in the world used it as a fucking blueprint on how to make a society, and we are in it now, baby, and it is only getting worse as we move towards. Is war inevitable, Spike?
We're at war. I mean, the war is happening right now.
It's already happening. I think that too.
The wild thing is that they've gotten the American public, for the most part, and I'd say the Western public in general, to buy into the notion that if our overt and public troop presence isn't actively involved in the fighting itself, then we're not at war. If it's only happening as a result of covert actions by, special forces that we find about years from now, but are obviously happening, and billions, or in some cases hundreds of billions of dollars worth of weaponry being handed off to other people who do the fighting on our behalf, we're not at war. No, we're at war. And the thing is, we are at war in that our government uses us as tax chattel to finance their war, which does nothing to protect us, does nothing to make us safer. If anything, it makes us less safe. it inches us closer and closer to the possibility of an all-out, either a nuclear war, God forbid, or even just a really bad hot war between major powers that could devolve into a nuclear war much more easily. But at least Northrop Grumman and Raytheon and General Dynamics and Boeing and all of the major contractors are making bank, and at least all of the neocon politicians have their talking points down, and at least the public is already signed off on whatever their next violation of their civil liberties is bound to be.
The good sheep will follow, and I mean, it's frustrating, but it's like you said, they try and shut down your Instagram account, interactment goes up. We love to see it, and that's what we need to do. That's the community stuff we were talking about earlier. Frankly, I mean, we got the numbers, guys. I don't know how to make this more clear to everyone. We have them outnumbered 1 million, 10 million to 1, right? But we just got to stop fighting about shit that doesn't matter. And I know that's hard. It's probably impossible.
As much as you enjoy fighting over shit that doesn't matter, just stop for a moment.
Just 1 year.
It would only that does matter. Just 1 year of not fighting over shit that doesn't matter. Yeah.
For real. So I guess where I was going to, just to close that off, like as we move towards a more hot war, this censorship stuff's just going to get worse. Unless we stick together and we keep cropping up. I'll tell you what, Spike, if they shut my TikTok account down today, I'll start another one tomorrow. I will. I'll be pissed about it, but I'll do it. And we'll keep grinding it out. So on that note, people may not know, and if they do, you were running as a vice presidential candidate in 2020. I just wanted to touch on that, man. And also, I don't know, maybe I should ask you this before, but are you going to go again this year?
I don't know yet. I have not decided. I will be making a decision sooner than later. It really comes down to how can I best help the liberty movement. And there's a lot of smaller questions that need to be answered to be able to answer that bigger question. But wherever I'm most needed, that's where I'll be. And I'm also not going to be coy about it. When I decide one way or the other, I will let everyone else know what I've just decided pretty soon after.
Appreciate that. Well, look, I hear RFK's running as an independent. I'll tell you what, you two on a ballot together would be pretty spicy, Spike. What do you think about it? Maybe he needs a VP guy. What do you think Sorry, go ahead, Spike.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is RFK has been one of those people where he'll say something like when he's talking about the COVID regime, when he's talking about free speech, when he's talking about quite a few things. And I go, 100%, this is great. Thank God we have someone who is on a national level saying this stuff. It's not some fringe candidate saying it. It's one of the more so-called mainstream candidates. And then he'll advocate for killing as many people in Gaza as possible. And it's like, oh no. Or he'll start, talking about some of his thoughts when it comes to gun rights and things like that. And it's like,
he used to come up here, Spike, and protest our oil. People don't know that about RFK.
Oh yeah. Oh, and he still is. He wants you're in Ontario. He wants a nationwide plastic bag ban. That'll fix it.
The plastic straws and the bags are not the fucking problem. I hate this one. That's actually such a touchy subject for me because I am listen, it comes down to the only reason I don't just walk outside and throw this bottle on the ground is because of community. Because of community and a sense of I'll do it for the community, but I don't give a fuck about littering because every human on earth could recycle everything they have for the rest of their lives. And if the fucking top 5% of companies just keep doing what they're doing, it will make no difference. It would make no difference because they make up 99% of the pollution. So,
and most of that pollution's not even happening here. So we could if every human being in the Americas died and all of our, pollution, carbon footprint, whatever you want to call it, all of that just completely went away and nature reclaimed our land, that would be offset by economic growth and pollution growth in India, China, and one or two other countries. within like 4 years, or 5 years. It doesn't matter. And
No, it doesn't.
and it's not to say that we shouldn't do anything for our local environment. Obviously, there are things that are good that we can do both for our community, like you said, for community and for the environment.
community.
That's all
Hell
fine.
yeah.
But
Hell
like
yeah.
like when they talk about the garbage patch in the Pacific, it's not because of your bottle. How did your bottle get to the Pacific? It's
What
not
about-
that. It's the commercial
about-
fishing.
What about that giant tire fire? I forget what country it's in. It might be Libya or Sudan,
Yeah.
but it's just like
Yeah.
you can see it from like 20
Yeah,
miles away. Like it's been burning for 10 years. There is a giant tire fire burning right now. There's probably multiple of them.
Something like, I think it's something like 90% or 80 something, 90 something. The vast majority of the garbage patch that we keep hearing about, and when they go, it's all plastics, it's leftover the drag nets that they use for fishing. They just cut it and leave it there, and it attracts it. Stuff gets caught up in it,
Oh my
dead
God.
animals and stuff. Like that's what's causing that. It's not your bottle. And so what they'll say is, oh, well, plastics are contributing to the garbage patch, so we're gonna ban you from using a cellophane shopping bag at Walmart. That'll fix it. And they show you that same picture of the one turtle that was snorting cocaine and got the straw in its nose, and they show it over and over and over again, and they go, we got to save the turtles. And I'm like, show me the second turtle. There has not been a second. They don't even have a second turtle. And I'm sure there's been a second turtle, but prove to me that you didn't shove the plastic straw in the turtle's nose for the photo op.
Well,
Because
and also
there's not even a second turtle.
plus those fucking cardboard straws have forever chemicals in them, by the way. Just like
That's the other thing.
if you weren't upset enough that it's soggy, halfway through your drink and you're chewing on your straw. I mean, whatever. Listen, we love turtles here, folks. Don't get it twisted, all right? Spike and I,
I'm very pro-turtle.
We are pro-turtle. This is a pro-turtle.
Stop. I am against the government shoving straws into turtles' noses for photo ops.
That's right.
That's what I'm against.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Fuck, I got off the rails, Spike. Sorry. It's kind of a theme with me. So when you were running, when you were on the campaign, like what's the thing that sticks out to you? What's the experience? How would you sum up the experience? And, what do you think a guy like RFK running independent, what's his number one obstacle going to be? Because I feel like you have a great insight on some of those obstacles. Yeah.
So I will describe running for VP in 2020, especially during, the lockdowns and all the travel restrictions we had to constantly get around in both legal and illegal ways. It was the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life. An average day running for vice president was waking up around 2 or 3 in the morning. If I was on the West Coast, I was usually doing my first radio interview for the day because drive time radio starts around 5 or 6 on the East Coast, which means 2 or 3 in the morning on the West Coast. I'm usually getting onto a plane by about 4 or 5 in the morning and flying to wherever I'm going for that first event, which is usually around lunchtime. In between all of these things, I'm doing phone interviews, newspaper interviews by phone, finding a place to, set up my camera so I can do a quick Zoom interview with a podcast or something like that. I was doing about 20 interviews, between 10 and 15 interviews a day. I would be doing, multiple speaking events, multiple fundraising events for local candidates. That was a big push of ours, was to get as many local candidates elected as possible. We helped get hundreds elected. I was constantly, meeting with activists who were doing, volunteer work and doing stuff to help keep their morale up, recording content to put on social media, reviewing the stuff that was being sent to me, because I was at that point barely even touching my social media. So I had a team that would bring me things and I'd look it over and all that stuff. I would occasionally try to, connect with the real world, maybe eat some food or something like that at some point, and usually go to bed anywhere between 10 p.m. and midnight and wake up again around 3 a.m. So very sleep deprived, constantly moving, constantly doing things. But again, it was very rewarding and challenging and an incredible experience. I got to meet people whose lives were being destroyed by the COVID regime and who thought no one was actually fighting for them, who thought that,
Right.
the mainstream of the main parties, had basically said, no, this is what we're going to do. And if you don't like it, tough. And here's $600 to make that work forever. And they just,
Yeah, that's
they
right.
thought that no one was real
I
insanity.
think that's what they
and
gave
so
the
they were
people
like,
in Maui. I think they
yeah,
gave
it's
them
yeah,
something
well,
similar.
yeah, same thing in Maui. It was like $600, $400, whatever. And so, they saw that someone was actually that there was a political party and candidates that actually were on their side for a change. And so it was a very rewarding thing. RFK has the potential, if he's running as an independent, he has the potential because of his name recognition to
Yep.
force it to be a three-way race. That alone is a useful thing. If he does
That could be
nothing
very.
else, nothing else, that's very, very useful. And even if, again, I disagree with him on most things, I think on some of the most pressing things, it's funny, some of the most pressing things, he's 100% correct. And on other of the most pressing things, especially when it comes to foreign policy, he is often as terrible as it gets. He's
Well, he's
up
a
there
career
with Joe Biden.
politician.
Trump.
That guy has been. He's an actor. He's a fucking actor. Like, I mean, listen, I like some of the stuff he says too. I mean, JFK, I'll always have love for. It's too bad the magic bullet had to go into 6 different parts of his body. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, he's a career politician. That guy. He's not saying those things, Spike, because he believes them. He studied the stats and he goes, oh, there's a little niche here. There's a lot of people that don't trust their government. I'm gonna start saying some of that shit. It's working for him.
I remember in April of 2020, and I am, and even after that, I'm making content about the lockdowns and why they're bad. How they not only are they bad infringements on our rights, they're destroying people's lives. They don't even work. They
didn't work.
creating the
It
conditions
saved
for cold and
70
flu season.
people up here. They did a study, Spike, and they said lockdowns saved 70 people.
Which I don't believe. I actually think it creates the conditions for cold and flu season. We stay in our poorly ventilated homes more often. We venture outside only to get basic necessities. We go the same time everyone else is going, so we're all breathing in each other's crap. Then we go back to our poorly ventilated homes to spread it with our closest loved ones. So I don't argue that it made it worse. But the point is, I would put that content out, and then even later on in the year, I'm now campaigning, often in violation of COVID orders. RFK was on Twitter saying that the lockdown should be extended because they were good for the environment.
No, he didn't. Did he really
Yeah.
do that? Oh
Yes.
my
Yeah.
God. Oh my hat.
And then a
I
few
can't
months later,
believe
now, to his
That's
credit,
insane.
a few months later, he started saying it was bad.
Okay.
Hey, thanks. When
Guys,
was this
listen.
change? When did this happen? Like a year later, a few months later, suddenly you're against it. Why are you against it? Oh, you're running for president? Oh. That's an interesting coincidence.
That's interesting. Well, guys, listen, if you like what RFK is saying now, my man, it's backwards. I keep trying to point at you and you're this way. My man Spike has been saying stuff. He's been saying this stuff for years, long before RFK even thought of saying it.
Way before it was cool, yeah.
Way before it was cool, way before, back when RFK was up in Alberta telling us to shut down our pipelines. Hey, RFK, maybe we could have used a pipeline right now. I'm just saying, I don't know, with the gas prices. I don't know, maybe that could have been handy.
Yeah.
Because we were supposed to have one that went all the way across the continent, but we canceled that.
I'm not saying that RFK is the guy who shoved the straw in the turtle's nose for the photo.
No, that's right. We're not. We would never say that.
I would never suggest that. I would never suggest that.
I'm gonna Photoshop a picture of that and make that the fucking the thumbnail for the fucking podcast.
Everyone's like, wow, whatever this is, I gotta see it. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, Spike. Wow, I did not know that he came out and said, and he wanted to keep them going for the environment, you say.
Yeah. Which means there's not really a strong end date there, right? Because at least with COVID, they're like, well, we want to slow the spread or we want to get COVID down. The environmental issues aren't going to go away over inside of a matter of weeks or months. So I'm not sure what exactly he was proposing, but it was he cited another article saying, oh, we shouldn't be opening back up until we figure out how to open up smarter for the environment. Well, we see how quickly it takes government to come up with new plans. How many years do we need to stay in our homes before the government said it was safe for us to go outside again?
I got some ideas on how to fix the environment. Stop letting huge corporations dump whatever the fuck they want wherever the fuck they want. And then maybe you won't have, what is it, 3M? 3M settling a $10 billion lawsuit with 5,000 American municipalities. I'm sure you know, Spike, because there's forever chemicals in the water. Like, this is not conspiracy. This is Wall Street Journal. This is like, it's there. It happened. They settled it. But let's talk about some submarine, with a bunch of billionaires that sunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it is a circus out here, my friend. And we are down here. We're trying to weave through the bullshit. I'll tell you this, just one more thing on lockdowns. I'm curious your thoughts on this, Spike. Remember the Boston Marathon bombing? Obviously, terrible fucking tragedy. When they locked that city down, when they locked Boston down 10 years ago, I looked at my colleague. I was working in Parliament Hill at the time. I looked at my colleague. I said, I don't like that. I said, I don't really like that. Fuck, I hate seeing the writing on the wall. But you can see where this stuff's going, man. And what you just said scared me, because that is the next one, the environment lockdown. I don't want to believe that crazy shit. But honestly, I wouldn't put it past. And like, they can't lock us down if we don't let them. Like, it's just such a fucking shitty thing that they will use that. They'll use your love for each other against you. They'll shame you. They'll say, you're going to kill my grandma. So you'll stay home. And then it's... That's
done. What they always do. We see that, and this is why I'm encouraging, like right now, this is less than a week out from when the worst fighting we've seen in Israel and Palestine in our lifetimes, in at least the last 50 years. And it reminds me, like, the white hot anger, hatred, fear, everything that I'm seeing right now is so reminiscent of those first couple of weeks of realizing COVID wasn't just some weird thing like SARS that was going to go away, that it was this scarier thing, and being told about all these millions of people dying. That fear and anger and hatred at people who weren't listening to the experts and all of that. And for those that are old enough to have remembered, to have been older when 9/11 happened, been a young adult or whatever when 9/11 happened, very similar vibes. Like, it's this kind of weird combination of, holy crap, what's going to happen? I'm scared. I'm angry. I'm being told to hate these people. I'm being told that these people are wrong. I'm being told that only these people are right. I'm being told that we need to do this thing that I would have never agreed to 12 seconds ago. And it's I encourage people, as much as you can, whenever these types of crises happen, whatever they are, take a step back and give it some time to breathe as much as you can. Before you start making new enemies among former associates and friends and allies because they disagree with you on this one part of this one thing, before you start buying into whatever the government's telling you is the next thing that needs to be done, before you say that the government, is in on it and that they're terrible people, whatever, before you do any of that, take a step back and focus on what we know that we know right now, and then in as sober and conscious a way as possible, move forward from there. It was very frustrating doing that during COVID and watching most people freaking out saying we're all going to die. It was, I'm sure for many others, it was frustrating watching me do that during 9/11. That turned me into a neocon. I was 19 when that happened. I had no perspective. I'm sure it was frustrating for them.
You and millions of other young Americans, and Canadians and people all over the world, man. That affected
people all over the world. So just keep that in mind moving forward. Like, when you feel yourself buying into the outrage, maybe it's legitimate. It might be legitimate. Give yourself the space to say, I'm going to take a step back and watch this play out. Like, one thing I'll just leave people with to think about, and this is, I don't know the answer to this. Israel had the most sophisticated defense system on Earth. They have something called Iron Dome that if you launch a projectile of any size or range or capacity towards Israel, they have a system that figures out the trajectory of where that projectile is going, and then either shoots a rocket, or I think now they have directed energy weapons to take it down, or if it looks like it's going to fall somewhere harmless, to just leave it be. They have gigantic castle-looking border walls across the country. They have a standing army that's as large or larger than all but a handful of them, and their entire purpose is to protect the borders of Israel. So, and yet, for some reason, either because of a catastrophic failure, an inside job, whatever, I don't know the answer to that. Whatever happened, people were able to paraglide at like 50, 60 miles an hour, where you can literally just sit there with your camera and watch them pan over to them coming over, and we're able to come in seemingly easily and invade settlements and attack raids and kill innocent people and all of that.
That was
and
the
as horrific as that is, it's terrible. And so I look at that and I go, how'd that happen? And again, I don't know the answer. It could be a catastrophic failure. It could be that Hamas had someone on the inside that, figured it out. It could be similar to a Pearl Harbor, where Israel had every reason to think it was happening and thought, you know what? We want a war. It could be any of those things.
Well, it's not like their prime minister is under investigation for corruption and fraud right now. Oh, wait.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, shit, he is. Right.
Yep.
How was he even allowed to run? I was doing a little homework before this interview today, and that's the beautiful thing of what they've done, Spike. Even a guy like me, I'm pretty tuned in, I forgot about that, because that was back in June. It's literally only 60 days ago. But how was this man?
Eons ago, back in June.
It's ancient history. How was he even allowed to run? It's like now because they're like, we have to pause the investigation now that he's prime minister again. And I'm like, well, that's not how that's supposed to work, I don't think, but no. God bless you. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure, didn't Israel just riot? Weren't they rioting like crazy a couple months ago over measures that Netanyahu wanted to do, that he was trying to push through? I believe there were some
probably
very
so. I would not surprise me at all.
Huge political. So, I mean, there could be, it's always the perfect storm, right?
We don't know.
It's always that perfect storm. But a war could be very beneficial, and war for a struggling politician, guess what it does for the approval rating, Spike? I know you know. It was great for George W. Bush. I remember George W. Bush having 90-something% approval rating. I want to be clear on this. I don't know for certain when I'm saying what happened, I don't know what happened. And I'm not going to say I know that it was an inside job. It could have very well been that Hamas said, screw it, we're going to try it. And it turned out that Israel's defense system was a paper dragon. It could very well, or a paper tiger. It could very well be that could be the case, which would then point to government ineptitude. Either way, whatever it was, these are the things I encourage you to consider when the government is encouraging you to just think about the crisis. Think about this crisis that's in front of you right now. You have to be scared. You have to be angry. Take a step back and think it through and compare it to other crises in the past. How did those things happen? What things did we find out later that we were being lied to about? How do those things rhyme with what happens right now? History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. How much does that rhyme with what we're hearing and seeing right now? And move forward from a place of consciousness instead of just going, I'm scared, I'm freaking out, I'm angry, I'm hateful, people have to die. We need to fix this. Please save me. Just think a little. I love that, Spike, and I'm going to just jump on and I'll add to it, because that is what, not to get serious here for a minute, but it is maybe a pivotal moment here. We're looking down the precipice of a very grim world-involved war here. You got people who are angry. I don't blame you guys for being angry. I think you should be angry. Don't be angry at each other. And I know it's impossible. I know the history, especially when you're talking about something as deep and ruthless and just tragic as the Israeli-Palestine conflict. But guys, it's horrific. It's the same group of people suffering every time. Who is it? It's me and it's the everyday people. That's who's hurting here. And yes, the atrocities on both sides are terrible and unforgivable. Having said that, they will never end if you keep perpetuating them. You have to stop fighting with each other over that shit. It's time to go over to, Richard Sackler's house and take everything in it. In Minecraft, in the video game Minecraft. I don't know who Richard Sackler is, but I do know whatever you just described. Sorry, I watched Painkiller. He's the Purdue Pharma guy that sold, the guy that sold heroin in the 90s? out of pharmacies?
Oh yeah, no, that guy should absolutely be taken out in Roblox.
In Minecraft, absolutely.
In Minecraft and Roblox, yeah.
Have you ever heard of this term, Spike? Because I think it is going to be a pivotal thing for people to understand and to watch out for. The banality of evil. And this is where we're getting into it, right? It's the bureaucracy of evil. It's Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You're not even it's the Nazi guy that put the stamp on, the guy's hand before he went in the shower. Like, this is the banality of evil, man. Watch out for it, because now is when it starts happening. So next time, I'm talking to you, Instagram moderator, or you TikTok moderator, or anyone that works in any sort of like censorship thing. When you are sitting there and you see a message and you know that message is right, and you know that message is a message with good intentions, but your boss is telling you got to ban it because it's not sticking to the script, just think about it. Just think about it. Next, and then, when you're assembling a bomb, when you're just anything, man, the banality of evil is going to be our downfall. And what do they say,
nature of it,
Evil comes in two forms, right? There's those that do, and then there's those that do nothing, right? So, I mean, I know it's a lot to ask people, but just be aware of it. Get to know your neighbors again. Know your community. I don't know, Spike. Am I saying the right things here? I just don't know.
No, I agree 100% with that. I think that the more that we remember, and this actually speaks to kind of a core thing that started with me trying to figure out the best way to message liberty to people that don't think in philosophies, which is most people, they don't think that way. It made me realize that we've been approaching this the wrong way. We focus on things like non-aggression, and we focus on things like natural rights. And those are concepts that a lot of people either don't agree with or don't understand and never will. So I made it even more basic. The reason that we generally, most of us feel generally safe and right now, anyone who's thinking, okay, I'm watching this, then I need to go to the store, and then I need to go pick this up, and I need to go do that and whatever. The reason that you feel relatively safe to do those things, even though you're going to be around a bunch of strangers and you don't know their motives, is you have a reasonable expectation that they are going to respect that you are an individual human being enough to not impose themselves on you. And if you don't feel safe that way, if you're in an area where you don't feel safe, well, you're really suffering as a result of that. And the more safe you feel that people are not going to harm you, that they're going to respect you as an individual and you're going to respect them in kind, the more you can prosper, the more you can live in harmony, the happier you can be. And the less of that you have, the more unsafe you feel, the more you feel like people are going to disrespect you, the worse things are going to be. And so it really comes down to what I call human respect, just respecting each other, not respecting their opinion or even liking them, but respecting that they're individual human beings with their own lives, their own boundaries, and their own path in life. And the more respect we have, the better things are going to be. And we have to get rid of the blind spot that we have when it comes to the government, who are just people who, if they were outside of their capacity, I talked about that in the clip that you showed, outside of their capacity as government officials, if those same government officials were to walk up and do the things as just private citizens that they do as government officials, we'd band together to stop them because we wouldn't tolerate it. So we shouldn't tolerate it when they're doing it in government either. If they're not respecting people as individual human beings, then we should always be fighting against that. We should always resist against that. We should always be teaming up together against that. We should always expect, demand, and push for individual human respect, both receiving it and giving it. And if you operate from not just that as a political process and not just that as a philosophy, but as a personal way of living, your life is going to be better.
Yep. Yeah. It sounds so simple, eh? And then humans get involved.
Yes.
God, that was a beautiful speech, sir. I think you're gearing up. I think I see what's going on here. You're doing a little practice session right now. That was beautiful. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say because I just hope. What needs to happen? What needs to happen for like not to hyper focus on this, but what needs to happen for let's say a West Baltimore and an East Baltimore, arch rival or a Palestinian Israeli. Yeah. How do we put these things aside? Like, what needs to happen? I know it's a super hard question, but let's take a stab at it.
I will say this, the easiest answer is what I was just saying, realizing that bottom line is none of us are going to get what we want until we're respecting each other, both expecting that respect from each other and respecting each other. But that's a very easy, almost platitudinal answer, because it's easy for me to say that here, not so easy for someone to say it who just had Hamas paraglide into their neighboring town and kill a bunch of people, and now their troops are going over and bombers are going over to fight them. Or if you're a Palestinian, Hamas, which is an organization that will kill you if you resist them, has now sent people over to kill people, and now your neighborhood's being bombed and destroyed, and countless people that you knew are being killed and losing everything. It's easy for me to say you need to respect each other, but the bottom line is we have to work towards that, because none of these things are going to happen overnight. We didn't get here overnight, and it's not going to happen overnight. But every step that needs to be taken needs to be a de-escalatory step. And it may include defending yourselves against those who have become so malignant that they're just going to try to kill you. Okay, great. Well, then those folks have to be taken out. That may be an unavoidable thing. And I'm not a pacifist. You have a right to defend yourself. At some point, there has to be an acknowledgement of saying, I have to look at, for example, with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, yes, take out Hamas. Yes, make sure that their ability to ever do anything like this again goes away. But don't destroy entire neighborhoods that ultimately leads to people joining Hamas because you've taken everything from them. And they go, well, screw it. I'm not allowed to fight against Hamas because they'll kill me anyway. I might as well join them because you're blowing up my neighborhood. Take away that from them. Take away their recruiting and look at the things that led to the settlements and the blockades and the putting cement in their water supply so that cementing up their waterworks so they aren't getting food and water. Like, look at the things that led to so many people becoming so desperate that something like a Hamas has happened. And as you're stopping the people that are trying to kill you, address the reasons that people would even join a group like that in the first place. Those are the things that have to happen long term. And it's a much more mature thing that a lot of people right now don't want to hear, unfortunately.
Oh, fixing a problem correctly takes, it's like you said, it takes time and it takes intellect and well thought out ideas. No one's got time for that these days. I heard that the unemployment rate in the Gaza Strip was like 50%, 46%.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
And so, and there you have it in a nutshell there. It's like, But what gets me, I'm going, why? Why can't they get, is it because there's no jobs? Is it because there's no good jobs? Is it a mix of a sort of bitterness? Like, imagine, me and my friend were talking about the whole thing earlier today, and we couldn't help but equate it somewhat to Canadian and Indigenous relationships, just when we start talking about the right to return and all that stuff of the Palestinian people. And I'm like, ooh. It's a tricky one, but in the end, you got to understand when you're looking at whether you're an Israeli looking at a Palestinian or vice versa, and you maybe guys have guns in your hands and you're ready to kill each other. Just know that you two have more in common with each other than any of these people at the top pulling the strings, any weapon manufacturer, CEO, any fucking banker on Wall Street, okay? That person that you're about to shoot is part of your squad. That's you. And you're killing each other. I don't care anymore, man. There's no country, there's no race. There is poor people and there's the elites. There's the pawns and there's the fucking one that sits in the back of the chessboard chilling. I know that's a very boiled down thing to say, Spike, but I gotta start. That is where I stand on it now, and that's where I'm gonna hold the line on it, because frankly, we have so many ways to divide ourselves now, and we keep coming up with new ways to do it. I'm just gonna boil it down to the basics. If you're not part of the 1%, you're on my side. That's the way I look at it. That's what I'm
it's funny because most Americans are part of the global 1%. I think it's actually, we say 1%, it's more like a 0.01%. You're talking a small, and I get what you're saying, but it's like a small handful of people. And what's wild is, you talk about the banality of evil. These people don't wake up and go, what evil can I inflict on the world today? No. This isn't a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. These people wake up, a lot of them genuinely having convinced themselves they're doing the right thing. And they got corrupted along the way and they justify a lot. And they go, but I'm trying to make the world a better place. And they're not, but they have convinced themselves of that. Name the worst people on earth. Every single one of them to the last one thought they were doing the right thing. And the problem is human beings are motivated by incentives. And the statist system that we have creates a perverse incentive for the most powerful people to grow their power, entrench their existing power, create crises or allow those crises to continue and worsen, and then use that to get even more power, more money, more control from you. And in this sort of endless loop of more power, more crisis, more power, more crisis, more power, more crisis. And so it's because that government in general is a uniquely bad way to organize people that it leads to the creation of these perverse incentives, which leads otherwise normal people to go, okay, yes, we must massacre 1 million people now, and that will increase my bottom line by this much. It's for the greater good, I assure you.
My career depends on it. You know?
Yeah.
It's that's just it. That's just it. Spike, is there anything else you wanted to get out there, get people? By the way, everyone, I hope you will go follow my man's Instagram account. Obviously, they're trying to take them down. We're going to fight the power, baby. We're going to flood your Insta. Get on over to youarethepower.net. Is that it, Spike?
Yeah, youarethepower.net. It's actually, we have youarethepower.com now. We got it a few months ago, so you can do .net or .com. We're just so used to saying .net because that was the only one we had. But youarethepower.com or .net go to the same website. We'd love to have you join us. Membership is free. If you want to work with us on finding people who are being disrespected at a core level by their government, and you want to join something that's actually creating results by helping people now and inviting people to join us on a fight for freedom and liberty and justice and respect now, and not wait for some utopian future where liberty has taken over, but actually do the work now to build towards that future, then come join us at youarethepower.net. We'd love to have you.
Beautiful. And I'll tell you what, I got the AI photo generator right here, and I'm just typing in Robert Kennedy Jr. shoving straw into Turtle's nose. And I will send you a picture over very shortly, Spike.
Yes, please. Please do. Yes.
Thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for going down some roads that a lot of people are too scared to even touch these days. I think we got to start having these conversations, man. And I think it was a beautiful conversation. What else can you say?
Absolutely,
the banality of evil can be extinguished. Community can live on. Hope is not dead, folks. Okay, that's what I want you to take from this podcast. Spike, I will be in touch. You keep doing all the great work you're doing, and
absolutely,
you let us know. You let us know which way you decide to go for the 2024 thing, eh?
I will definitely do that, and you keep doing the good work you're doing too, man.
Thank you, sir. All righty. You take care.